Okay, we're live. Cool. It's like the second or third time I've done this, I think. 1 second. Alright. Of course, somebody messaged me. Alright. Hopefully he got it now. Okay. Let me pull up. Alright. Oh. Okay. Did not know that. Alright. Now we're good. Now we're okay. Okay. So, hello for anybody who happens to come across this while I'm live or as a VOD. I decided that I can't. I mean, not that I can't, but Marvel for me just has not been hitting enough to motivate me to want to produce videos. And so I decided like a live stream would be a much easier way for me to go about this. Since there's like little work required so for me to run my mouth, which I do anyway. Hey, Mr. E, welcome to the stream. Oh wow, I did not. Oh, actually, yeah, that makes sense because my stream key changed. Okay. So yeah, I just finished watching Hawkeye. I meant to finish it earlier, but it is what it is. So I'm giving myself 10 minutes for each episode. That way I don't run my mouth too much. So let me scroll up to my notes here. Scrolling up. Okay. And start. So episode number 1 is Never Meet Your Heroes. So it starts in 2022. Kate is listening to her mom and dad have an argument. Not important in the grand scheme of things, but Kate's dad comes up, tries to comfort her, like, oh, you heard the argument, like, my bad. And he's like, why don't you go have lunch with your mom? I'm gonna go down to my office to do whatever, I guess. So then Kate's mom magically disappears right before lunch. Like, you know what? I'm gonna go downstairs to do something. Get the checkerboard. Like, who suggests to get the checkerboard during lunch? Okay, that's how you already knew it was suspicious. But yeah. Shortly after she goes to get the checkerboard, the freaking invasion on New York happens. So, quite the eventful day for Kate. She ends up seeing Hawkeye slaying some aliens in the distance with just a stick and string, as she says. And that really, I guess, gave her some hope and made her feel not as bad about her own situation, I guess. I don't know how, but it happened. Let's see. What else? What else? Blah, 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 blah. Oh, yes. So then after that, Kate's mom kind of like jump scares us. She's like, Kate! And I'm like, oh god. And Kate turns around like, oh my god, mom. And she's like, come on, honey, we're leaving. And she's like, where's dad? And she like never answers, which sounds very, very suspicious. And turns out he died. He died the same day. So it's yet to be seen whether Kate's mom killed the dad or not. I feel like they won't touch on it on season 2, and it will just be something I never know. Thought the show was okay for the most part. Nothing memorable. Nothing memorable though. I thought the show at the time was the best Marvel series by default. And the only reason I say that is because I thought it was the most well put together. It didn't seem like it was rushing toward the ends. Like they fully planned out the story so that way, each episode like was moving us forward and not just having like a filler episode or an episode where like essentially nothing happens. So that's why I thought it was the best Marvel series at that time. Now I think Moon Knight is, but again, Moon Knight also has some faults. But the story that they told was better, even though it was kind of rushed at the end. But the story that they got to do is pretty good. Let me see. I got 7 minutes left on this episode. So we cut to Kate Bishop in college. She's like, was dared by some friends who were terrible, by the way. She was dared by some friends to shoot an arrow at this bell tower. She ends up hitting it, and the bell tower, like, kind of folds in on itself. So honestly, Kate was doing the people a service by showing just how poorly constructed and or how, like, just decimated the building had been, how old it was, pretty much. So they should be thanking her because that easily could have been a terrible accident waiting to happen. But she gets in trouble for it. She has to pay for it, so she goes home, talk to her mom about it. You can see how that would have gone over, but not too well. And then we cut to Rogers the Musical, which, let's see, which is thankfully is so much better than Spider-Man Take Out the Dark or something like that. Yeah, that I actually went to go see that play in New York, Spider-Man like Turn Off the Dark or something like that. Really, really, really bad. I remember I really enjoy musicals. Either I fell asleep during that or I completely blocked it out of my memory. It was just really bad. Apologies to anybody who actually worked on that, but it was so bad. It was very bad. I guess creatively, but yeah, that was bad. But anyway, Rogers the Musical. Clint and his family, his daughter Lila, um, Nate, and I don't know what the oldest guy's name is. He doesn't really talk that much, but they were all sitting together watching it. Clint gets up, goes to the bathroom, sees Thanos' right written on a urinal. I thought that was pretty funny. And it's something that like people go back to from the series. I noticed like on Twitter and stuff. Oh man, I have less than 5 minutes to get through the rest of this episode. Okay. I'll just bring up important points. So moving on to when Kate's talking to her mom about the bell tower thing, and one of the things that Kate's mom says to Kate is like, "Hey, you young people think they're invincible. Rich people think you're invincible. Right now, you're both. You don't know what it's like to be poor, and you have like a lot of. You're very privileged," which was true. But she says this all throughout the series, and we never really get Eleanor's like I was poor backstory, or like I came up from the ground from nothing and just like got here. So not saying she had to have that, but the way she just kept saying it over and over and over again in the series, like I would have liked to see something so that way I understand a little bit more where Eleanor's coming from, because it just seemed a little, I don't know, it was very naggy at times. But at this event, they have a charity auction. Oh, sorry. Eleanor is getting ready to go to a charity auction, or a charity, what was it? Charity event? Yeah, it was a charity event. And at the bottom of that charity event, there was a black market auction, but we'll get to that in a second. So, Kate finds out at the charity event that her mom, Eleanor, is getting engaged to Jack Duquesne, and she doesn't really like Jack, or she kind of, I don't know what her deal was, like why she didn't like Jack, but she didn't like Jack. So she finds that out. She's like, "Mom, what the hell?" And then they have a little kerfuffle. Then Eleanor walks away, gets yelled at by Jack's father, uncle, I think maybe. And then Kate's like, "What the hell was that?" And Eleanor's like, "I don't know. Let's just go back to the party." And then she follows, Armand Duquesne the third. That's the uncle slash I think it's uncle. I think he was uncle. She follows him into this like back room for some reason and sees the black market auction. So let's see. Oh my gosh, I wrote a lot of things and it's all very sloppy. But goes in the auction, things go wrong. Freaking robbery happens with the Tracksuit Mafia. They're trying to steal specific items, but they end up taking a lot of stuff. And one of the things that they wanted to take was, which they did not explain actually. I didn't think about that. One of the things they wanted to take was a Rolex, um, which is later revealed at the end of the series to have like just a shield logo printed on it, and it's supposed to have some kind of connection to Laura Barton, Clint's wife. They did not explain that very well. I will say that they didn't plan that out very well in the show. Oh my gosh, there's so many things. Clint has survivor's guilt. That's one thing. Um, Thinking about Natasha, just at the play and then at the dinner when when him and his family are at the Chinese buffet, and they was like, "Thank you for saving the city," and he kind of feels like, I don't know, he doesn't feel the way that you would think a hero would. Like, oh, like they're appreciative. That's cool. He's giving me survivor's guilt vibes. Oh, even I just noticed in my notes I wrote Armand Duquesne, Jack's father? Question mark. I don't know what his relationship is to Jack. I want to say uncle, but I have no idea. Let's see. Anything else important? Oh yeah. So when Kate is at the auction, she finds the Ronin, or she sees Jack buy the Ronin sword, and then she also sees the Ronin suit. She puts on the Ronin suit to fight the tracksuits at the black market, or at the black market auction. Yeah, fights them, runs it out in public after a dog, who she like kind of talked to a little bit earlier. I don't know why she'd be talking to this dog so much, but she talked to it a little bit earlier, and I guess if she found a connection. So she went after this dog, gets she was recorded and gets put up on the news, and then Clint sees it, so then he goes after her because he's like, oh no, somebody's wearing the Ronin suit again, like I gotta take care of this, and they have a big kerfuffle, and that's the end of the episode, I think. I see. Anything else? Anything else? This is a lot harder than I thought. Blah blah blah. Oh yeah, the dog's name, temporarily pizza dog. Yes. With 9 seconds to spare. I don't know how much I cut out though. That's a lot. All right. No, wait. Reset it. We're just gonna keep going. All right. So episode 2 called Hide and Seek. So we pick up where episode 1 left off with Clint finding out that Kate is in the suit. Oh, that's right. That's where the episode ended. And so he's like, oh, damn, we're just a kid. Like, are you okay? And asks her all these questions. And Kate's just like fangirling over Hawkeye because, you know, that's the guy that inspired her to take up archery and it's like her superhero. And like she saw him do all this stuff in episode 1. And so Hawkeye, he's like cutting through the BS there. He's like, okay, has anybody seen your face? Did anybody see you come here? And unfortunately, the answer is yes for somebody seeing her go to her apartment. So the Tracksuit Mafia shell a bunch of Molotovs into Kate's apartment, effectively burning it to a crisp. So her, Clint, and the dog escape, and they go to a drugstore to get some Neosporin and Band-Aids. So after getting drug supplies, or medical supplies, they go to Kate's aunt's, Myra Brandon's apartment for the holiday. I wrote, it's not mentioned in the show that Myra is an actress, but in the MCU, helps the it's not mentioned in the show, but in the comic books, Myra is an actress who ends up helping the Avengers by I think like giving them shelter, and so they make her and then she ends up passing away, and so they made her like an honorary Avenger. So that was like a little Easter egg there that I learned from watching other videos. So shout out to the comic book channels. Let's see what else. So Clint goes back to Kate's apartment because that was where the Tracksuit Mafia are one of the highlights for me. The Tracksuit Mafia is pretty fun. I also enjoy the Tracksuit Mafia. I also enjoyed Kate's relationship with Yelena a little bit more. This time around, I still think that scene where they're like sitting at the table is like a bit long, but I do enjoy it a little bit more now that I've had like time to sit with it. I will admit that. Some things have aged like wine. Some things have aged like wine. Other things that I did not like, I still don't like. Let me see. But yeah, Clint finds a clue. When he's going back to Kate's apartment, he sees there's like a New York City LARPers sticker on the fire engine. So he takes that down, goes back to Kate's aunt's apartment, and they talk for a little bit before Clint ends up going back to his hotel. So a lot of traveling for Clint, a lot of moving around. So Clint goes to his hotel in the morning, tells his kids, hey, go home. I'll be home tomorrow, or something like that. He says that a lot in this series, but he's like, I'll be home tomorrow. So everybody's like, yeah, sure, Dad. And move on. And what's next? Oh my gosh. Something I wrote. Clint leaves his biological kids to go home so that he can go to his adopted child, Kate Bishop, and see that the Ronin is being blamed for Armand III's death on the news. Yes. So that's something I didn't get to mention in my episode 1 review just moments ago. So Kate ends up going to Armand III's house because reasons? I don't really remember why she did that. She kind of just went. Ends up seeing the monogrammed butterscotch and that Armand is dead, more importantly, killed with a sword. And so that's on the news, and the people are like, oh, Ronan must have done it because he was in the area. And so it's becoming a much bigger situation than it originally was the night before. So they're walking through Times Square, going to somewhere. Hopefully it's written down in my notes. But they're walking through Times Square, and Kate's asking him. Well, first she's saying like, you know, why people don't recognize you. Or no. Mixing up. So she's asking him what happened to his hearing. Like, how come he has a hearing aid now? And Clint says like, well, it's too hard to tell. And then you get like a montage of all the different like injuries and accidents that he's had as an Avenger, which was pretty funny and like a quick way to show without having to tell, which he doesn't really know how to tell anyway, so it works. And then they talk about the branding issue because a little girl's like, oh my god, it's a superhero, and runs past Clint and goes towards Katniss Everdeen, which was a cool little reference there. Disney has kind of been going crazy with the references. Like, I don't know if y'all seen the Chip and Dale movie. I thought it was fun. It was like nothing too deep. I wasn't expecting anything too deep, but the amount of references that were like crammed into that movie, and just like the different kinds of references, like it wasn't just Disney stuff. Like it was all over the industry, which is cool to see. I recommend it if you really like Easter eggs and like Chip and Dale. It's not exactly a Rescue Rangers movie, and that's coming from someone who like, I've never watched Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, but this was not about the Rescue Rangers. But there's one character in particular that made the movie worth it for me. Is all I will say. And you'll know very early on. You will know. If you don't know already, you will know. Let's see. Blah 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 blah. What the? Ah, yes. So they're walking through Times Square because Kate is going to work and Clint is like escorting her. So when Kate walks into her building, she's trying to go immediately to her mom's office because her mom owns the company. And she sees that Jack is there and she's like thinking that Jack is, well, she saw him at the auction for one thing, so already suspicious there. But she's being a little bit of a protective pup, I guess. And it's like, hey Jack, like what are you doing here? Like, oh, I see Armand the third passed away last night. Like, that's sad, isn't it? What about the inheritance? And asking all these really direct and like kind of rude questions. Like there was no like cheeky. She didn't go about it in a cheeky way. She was just very accusatory with her questions, without actually accusing him of anything. So Eleanor's like, oh my gosh. I was like, hey, you chill out. This isn't cool. Why don't we all have dinner? And then Kate's like, okay, let's have dinner, but I get to pick the topics. So that's gonna be bad. And then we switch back to Clint. Clint's going to go to he finds the LARPers in the park. And I'm running out of time. So he signs up for the LARPing thing because they're like, right, we're not letting you in. There's no like looky loos, whatever. And he's like, okay, well, I want to be respectful about it, so I guess I'll sign up. Goes in, finds a bunch of people. It was kind of funny because he's like, kind of takes it a little bit more seriously. Like the more he gets into it, like, oh, these people are kind of, they're taking it serious, I guess. He kind of played it up as well. He meets Grills, who has the Ronin suit. Oh, that's right, I didn't mention that. Grills picked up the Ronin suit from the fire in Kate's apartment, and Clint's like, "Hey, I need that back." And Grills was like, "Okay, I'll fight you for it. Just let me win." And so they do that. They have this like really not a tense battle. It's kind of funny, and I don't know. Like this whole scene for me kind of made Hawkeye seem like a more personable person, or it made him more personal person. Oh my gosh. Don't subtract time for the sneeze, please. So I like that for Clint. It showed a little bit of build of his character because he's not really been like the soft kind of type. At least all the Avengers movies and stuff, like he's been like pretty straightforward and just like business only. Which he kind of has like a similar facade in this as well, but you kind of see him break down and talking about his family and getting to know Kate a little bit better, which is cool. What else? Let's see. I wrote so much. So much. Alright, Kate's at the family dinner with Jack and Eleanor, and Kate brings up fencing, and Jack is a fencer, so they, like, push the dinner to the side. Fence, Kate's trying to prove that he is good with the sword, and Jack is downplaying his skills, but Kate tries to stab him in the face, and he blocks it, so she's like, there you go, I got my proof, and Eleanor's like, you almost stabbed my fiance in the face. What the hell? And she's like, well, I wouldn't have done it. Possibly, but what else? Oh my god. What did he get? Wait, I have a question here. Let's see. Someone else answers phone. Kate uses it. Was okay. Ask her about it. Ah, okay. So one thing I did ask, I'm not so sure about it now, but I'll still post the question. So one thing I did write in my notes, was that so seeing Jack eat the monogrammed like Armand the Third candy, was supposed to be a sign that like, or it was supposed to be like a false like red flag. I forget what it is. A red herring that, or no, not a red herring. A fake red herring. That's like, oh, like Jack had something to do with the murder because look, he has the monogram candy, so he went to Armand's house at some point. And then I started to ask myself, well, since this was like a fake red herring, where did he actually get the candy from? Did he get it from Eleanor? And if he got it from Eleanor, why didn't he start asking questions about it? Because obviously, if you've seen the series, Eleanor killed Armand the Third. So I don't know. But then again, Jack is also dumb. So I guess. And then at the end of the episode, Clint is trying to clear things up. So he calls Laura, says, "Hey, might be another day or two. About to get into some deep stuff. About to do a catch and release, I think he said, which is a technique that Black Widow apparently used a lot. So he goes, gets himself captured by the tracksuit mafia, and yeah. He goes, gets himself captured by the tracksuit mafia, is trying to clear Kate Bishop's name from the suit, and then what does Kate do? Freaking falls through the skylight because she thought he was in some kind of danger, which I guess he technically was. Effectively ruining that plan. And then we see, I said, so then the head bro goes, talks to the boss, Maya, who's like blasting music because she is deaf, so the way that she listens to music is through the vibrations. So like feeling the vibrations on the speakers or the subwoofers is how she gets it. And then the episode ends there. All right, we're a few minutes over, but that's okay. That's okay. I'll count that as the sneeze time. Oh my gosh, it's a lot. But I will take a break from my reviews of all the episodes in between, just to say that I thought the pacing for this show, it's probably still the best paced MCU show in my opinion. Like, it kept the action going, it kept the plot going, and it was adding some complexity while also trying to answer some questions along the way, which I haven't. What's the closest show to that? Maybe Falcon and the Winter Soldier had that. Sorry, gotta go. Oh, no problem. The VOD will still be up. It'll still be here. I'm just trying to get through this because I did say I was gonna do this, and it's been forever. So, yeah, thanks for coming through though. I appreciate it as always. I will catch you in the next one. But yeah, I think Falcon and the Winter Soldier is probably the second best in terms of the pacing. Even though it got a little weird at the end. But maybe they'll figure it out. Who knows? Anyway, on to episode 3. So, episode 3, The Echoes. It starts with Echo learning how to read lips in school because she didn't have an interpreter, and she later talks about this with her father. Like, I thought you were going to send me to, like, the special school for deaf children. He's like, sorry, I can't afford it, but you'll honestly be better off this way because you'll be able to go in between two worlds. They also talk about one of the things Maya asks is about dragons. I forget how they get on topic of it, but she's like, are dragons real? And he's like, oh, maybe, but they exist in a different world, and that's how they got on the whole two worlds thing. So I thought that was cute. I thought her dad was really sweet for the moments that we got to see him. So after she grows up learning martial arts and also either boxing or kickboxing, I can't remember. Just like a very, I guess, I don't know. She was just into like the combative sports, I guess. One night she ends up taking her motorcycle over to the Fat Man Auto Shop, which is apparently where her dad worked, and she sees that the Ronin is killing people, and so she obviously gets worried for her father, so she runs in and like is just in time to see the Ronin like effectively put the dagger into her father and end it. So she walks over to speak to him. He's like, it's already over for me, but listen, still live your life. Like, don't get into this crap. I think. Yeah. um so then we go back to the present where Echo's sitting in the office. She walks out to speak to King Clint and notices that Clint has a hearing aid in. So she tells Kazi, who's her right hand man, like, hey, like, cut him free for a second so that way he can sign, so we can communicate. So Clint, like, does, like, elementary level of signing, and it's like, hey, like, I want a cookie, or like, yeah, more cookies please, thanks. She's like, okay, tie him back up. And I'm like, oh, okay, that ended quickly. um so she has to pretty much rely on Kazi to be her interpreter in that moment, even though she can read lips pretty well, as we've seen in some later episodes. But Clint tries to explain to um, Echo that Kate is not Ronin, and that the real Ronin or that she put on the costume by mistake. She didn't know what it meant, and that the real Ronin is dead. And she's like, and Echo asks, like, well, how do you know this? And Clint says, um, Natasha Romanoff killed him. She's like, oh, that's convenient. He's like, I saw it happen. So I'm trying to convince her out of it, but obviously not working out too well. So then Echo turns her attention to Kate, and I forget what Kate said that just like set her off, or even if she said anything at all. But Echo kind of just low key starts choking her out, and it's like it's very sudden. It's like, whoa, like what happened here? But starts choking her out. Clint breaks free in the middle of this and runs to get or he was running around the warehouse, and eventually gets knocked over by Echo. She like catches up to him, knocks out his hearing aid. They exchange a few blows, and then he continues to run and conveniently hits this trampoline that's placed in front of a window. A bit convenient, but he jumps into the trampoline, jumps through the window, grabs his bow and arrow, and just starts shooting arrows at people like rapid fire. Now, this kind of looks like he's killing people. People have told me that he wasn't, but like some of the places he was hitting people, I'm like, I don't know. They're definitely badly hurt. Let's see. Okay. So then after that is what I thought was the best action sequence in the entire show. So Clint shoots an arrow at Kate, so Kate breaks free. She grabs her arrows and stuff, fights Kazi for a second, but then they both end up escaping the warehouse. I don't know why everybody's kind of like slow to get out, but Clint and Kate are the first ones to get out, so they hop into a car, start driving away, and then they kind of have like a sequence where you can see inside the car, and it's kind of like we're passengers almost in this action sequence where they're getting ready to have this like battle throughout the streets, and we're looking at them, and then we're looking back at the tracksuits, and yeah, I just thought that was really cool and very creative. It reminded me a lot of Kingsman 2. Kingsman 2 they did a much longer one shot inside of a car, or seemingly one shot. It was not to that level. Like I thought that was like, if you're like, I don't know, Kingsman is like top tier with just like the execution, the idea, the action, and the Hawkeye is approaching it. But they didn't stretch it out as long as Kingsman did. They didn't explore it as much. Let's see. Moving on from that sequence, I talked about that a lot. We did get to see a bunch of trick arrows. The coolest one, in my opinion, is the Pym Tech arrow, and it's the blue arrow, which causes things to grow. And so, Clint tells Kate to shoot a regular arrow up into the air, and then Clint shoots that arrow with the Pym Tech arrow, so it becomes a huge arrow, and it comes down on one of the Fat Man vans, and it just like combusts. And I'm like, if the arrows inside the warehouse didn't kill anybody, then definitely all these like explosions that were happening inside these cars, and then like flipping and everything, that somebody had to have died in that. Like, I'm sorry. It's hard for me to believe. And it's not like I want people to die, but if you're going to make that kind of action, there's really no like tension or fear that something is going to happen to our protagonist or to the villains. If literally everybody walks out of things like that, okay. So, and it cut the suspense for me a little bit. Could no longer suspend my disbelief. Um, let's see, what else? Ah, yes. Oh, I really like the scene. So then, like, one of the most emotional scenes of the series. It's like very simple but very emotional. While Clint's hearing aid is smashed, his son Nate, who's like a really young, his youngest child, calls him, and he can't hear what he's saying, and so he's just like saying things like, "Oh, hey, buddy, listen, I can't really talk right now," and so Kate actually comes over to help Clint, and like is writing down notes as fast as she can, just like saying like what Nate is saying, like, "Hey, I'm gonna be home for Christmas. Like, hey, I'm really bored. I just woke up. Like nobody else is up, I guess." Things like that, which I thought was really sweet. And another kind of moment where you see like Hawkeye is just a regular dude, just like anybody else, but not in the sense that we've always thought of him as like a regular dude hanging out with the Avengers. But a regular dude isn't like all this stuff kind of gets to him, and he has a family, and I guess just kind of emphasizing just how important his family is to him. Because I know as one of the people that really wishes Hawkeye was the one to get sacrificed for the Soul Stone. Um, like the biggest defense I think Hawkeye has is like he has a family, and so getting to see just how important his family is to him in that moment, it does make you like kind of think like, okay, I guess they need him, but couldn't Natasha have done the same thing? Couldn't she have done the same thing? That's what I argue. But right after that moment, everything goes back to normal with Kate kind of bugging Clint about stuff again, specifically about his costume and his branding. So she mocks something up that I think is pretty comic book accurate. And he's like, no, like my wife would divorce me if she saw me in that. Like we're not doing that. So that gets scrapped. And then Kate heads over to her mom's penthouse to get some security files for Kazi with the shell company Sloan Limited. Um, and as they're doing that, Clint hears like a creaking behind them, so he goes to check it out, and his throat is met with Jack Duquesne's blade, which happens to be the Ronin sword. And that is the end of that episode. Oh my gosh, 10 seconds left. So we're two for three right now. Oh, okay, taking a breath. I'm trying to think what was my favorite episode. I guess I can think about that a little bit more towards the end. But I actually really enjoyed this episode. Episode 3. It really made me see Hawkeye in a different light, I feel. Like, I care about him more than I did before. Not to say that, like, he's my favorite Avenger or anything. But I at least respect him now. Before there was very little to no respect. Just because like he always kind of seemed to be in the background or like never really taking charge and doing something or never really had that spotlight. But now he has it. Oh, I realized I was recording by accident. My bad. Yeah, on to, let's see, episode 4, Partners, am I right? Okay, ready? Excuse me. Alright, go. So, picking off where we last left off with Jack's sword at Hawkeye's throat, Kate de-escalates the situation. It's like, hey, this is Hawkeye, like, calm down. And he's like, oh yeah, you're an archer. I don't know. Jack is an interesting dude. So they all sit. So Kate's mom, Jack, Kate, and Clint sit down at a table and kind of discuss this whole awkward situation. Which kind of doesn't really go nowhere. Basically, Kate's mom's like, hey, you shouldn't do this. And then she's looking at Clint like, she's just a kid. Like, why are you letting her do this? And then Jack's like, Hawkeye's cool. Kate's like, I can do this. I'll be fine. Like, we're partners. And Clint's like, no, we're not partners. And that's pretty much the end of that conversation. And then as Kate's mom Eleanor is walking Clint out of the mansion so that way she can talk to Kate, she does kind of reiterate again, like, hey, I want you to leave Kate out of this. And Hawkeye's like, we'll see. We'll see about that. And then I wrote, they talk about this damn Rolex, which I wrote in my notes, one of the most disappointing things of the show, which it definitely is. That kind of built it up to be like this big secret, which I guess it still is a secret, but like something that we were going to get more information on at the end of the series, which we didn't get anything that really felt satisfying. All we found out was Laura was a SHIELD agent, which, okay, we could have figured that, but there's like nothing else. So I don't know. That was pretty disappointing. But moving on from that, while Kate is talking with Jack and Eleanor, we get to see Jack and Eleanor like dancing together, and it's like cute but also awkward. But we do get to see like Kate kind of warming up to Jack and seeing like how Jack is able to like bring some light into Eleanor's life and be a positive impacting force. She quickly forgets that though later on. Yes, and Jack butchers another saying, which is pretty fun. He has some pretty good ones, I'm not gonna lie. Like him being essentially like a dumb character is disappointing just in terms of what the series could have been had he been like Hawkeye's teacher or sensei or whatever you want to call it, had taught him the way of the bow. It would have been better for him as a character because he kind of just is like cannon fodder by the end of it. But his funny kind of character and the way he goes about things in like a very different, weird way is cool. I enjoyed it. Wish there was more to him, but it was cool for what we got. What else? Oh yeah, it was funny. So right after Jack talks about like being alone on the holidays would suck, and being with your family on the holidays is what you should be doing. Kate immediately leaves her family and goes to hang out with Clint, which he was alone, so it's fair. And she spends her holiday with him. So they do a bunch of holiday stuff, like watch Christmas movies and put up the Christmas tree, while also trying to put together this plan to take down the tracksuits and to try and figure out what's going on with Echo, and also a little bit Jack Duquesne, because Kate still suspects him after that. And what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, he was basically doing all the things that he was supposed to do with his actual family with Kate, which just reinforces the adopted daughter situation. We also get a brief Natasha reference. There are a lot of Natasha references throughout, where Kate is asking Clint, what is the best shot that you've ever taken? And he was like, the one that I didn't take. And he was referring to a time when he was assigned to take Natasha out, and he saw that she wasn't really trying to be in this life anymore. And so he didn't take the shot because he didn't think that she deserved to go out that way. What else? Oh, Kate also figures out that Clint is the Ronin. That, I guess she figured out an appropriate amount of time. Like, if it was the very last episode and she just happened to figure it out, like, come on, Kate. Like, look at the signs. So moving on from that, they put their plans into action. So combine their names. Clint goes to intimidate Kazi, and Kate goes to get the arrows by getting in touch with the LARPers, who some of them are in the police force, so they're able to remove the evidence, which is illegal. But she was like, hey, it's for Hawkeye, so it's cool. So the arrows are sorted, and Clint goes to talk to Kazi, like, hey, this is not going to end well for anybody. If this continues, I'm just letting you know, Maya could get really hurt. She keeps going down this route. So they meet up. Kate and Clint meet up at Grills' apartment, where they also left Lucky the dog at some point. I don't remember that. So they're getting their gear together. Let's see. And the last thing that they needed to do for the day was break into Kazi's apartment. I forget why they're trying. I think they were looking for the watch in Kazi's apartment, but also trying to gather information. But they end up actually breaking into Maya's apartment by accident. But before we get to that, so as they're like staking out the apartment, Hawkeye's like, okay, I need you to watch, make sure nobody's like entering while I'm in there. I'm gonna get out, we're good. And Kate is like already gone as he's explaining himself. He's like, hey, what's going on? She's like, come on, out of the two of us, who do you really trust to not get distracted and actually like watch and make sure everything's going well? So Kate, she actually does a few slick things in the series, which I really like. One of them being in episode 1, where she takes note of the head server's name being Gary, so that way she can kind of get by for a little bit until she actually meets Gary. And then in this episode, she sees somebody walking into the building, the apartment building, and she's like, oh, hey, like, I can help you with your groceries if you like. And she gets in that way, and then effectively scares off this old man by like talking to herself and be like, oh, there's an Avenger in my head, like, don't worry about it. He's like, okay, I'll take my groceries back and I'm gonna go. So then she gets into the apartment and some flashing lights go off. They don't know what it is, but turns out it's actually a silent alarm, kind of hinting at who the apartment belongs to. And as Clint is kind of putting this together with the silent alarm and the notes for Maya was taking notes on Clint Barton and figuring out who his family was, and also with the watch. That's when Maya, surprise, surprise, shows up behind Kate, and they start to have their little fight. And just as Clint is about to warn Kate about Maya, he actually gets attacked by an unknown assailant who turns out to be Yelena in like a Splinter Cell night goggles mask thing. So Kate's in the apartment fighting with Maya, and I thought it was a pretty decent sequence. I'm trying to think back to like if there's anything like really cool or a standout moment, and I don't believe so. And the same thing with Clint fighting Yelena. It was cool, but there's nothing that really stands out to me. It's like, whoa, like this is like I haven't seen this before. This was done really well. But yeah, so Clint picks up his bow and shoots one of the rope arrows to the apartment building, so that way Kate can like slide her way down. So Kate slides down, Echo slides down, and then they just have like I would say a battle royale, but Clint and Kate are on the same team, and everybody else is like free for all. So they're all tussling, shooting all kinds of trick arrows and gadgets at each other. And then it all kind of just breaks up. With, let's see, why does it have, it's kind of funny. I mentioned this in the Geek Vibes Nation interview, or not interview, podcast, which if y'all want to see more like specific notes about each episode, I'll definitely go check that out. But there were like a couple times where Kate shoots an arrow and Echo's kind of like, I did not sign up for this. Like, I think I want to go. And then she kind of gets dragged back into the fight. But then the second time, she's really like, okay, I'm done. We're not playing anymore. And she actually leaves, which I thought was funny. Just the way she exited, like, I don't think that was super intentional. It kind of looked not cowardly, but it was definitely a retreat. And then Yelena, she leaves pretty much like a badass, like, I'm leaving on my own terms kind of thing. And Clint looks at Kate like, okay, there's a Black Widow involved in this now. This is more serious than it was before. Like, you need to be cut off. And that's where the episode ends, about 30 seconds off. But that's okay. That's okay. Okay, let's just jump right into episode 5, Ronin. All right, and go. Nope, go. So, starts off with Yelena sneaking into a mansion with Sonya, who is another Black Widow that was um, that woke up with the drug that was in the Black Widow movie. If y'all haven't seen it, I feel like a lot of people didn't watch it or maybe didn't enjoy it. I don't know. But I recommend it. I think, at least for me. Hold on. Let me stop my timer. Actually, I'm like talking about other things. Let me stop. Let me restart it. But I think for me, the reason why I thought the Black Widow movie could have been a little bit better, a big part of it is timing. Like, if this movie had come out before Black Widow had died or like shortly after, I think it would have been much more impactful. But of course, COVID changed a lot of things and messed up that timeline as far as like the releases go. But if it had come out when it was supposed to come out, I think it would have been more impactful and more people would have enjoyed it. Because it's kind of hard to convince people to go to a movie to see a dead character and not really have too much progress. Like, honestly, if you didn't watch the Black Widow movie and then you just watched like the Hawkeye series and that was your first introduction to Yelena, I don't think you would be worse off for it, not gonna lie. Okay, starting again. So, Yelena and Sonya are sneaking into this mansion, which turns out to be the mansion of a widow, which they assume is like a widow that's under mind control, is like being taken advantage of by some rich dude or something, I think they said. So they fight this woman, and this woman high key beats both of their asses, which is crazy. But they end up somehow tackling her onto a carpet and like spraying her with the antidote. And it's funny because when I first saw this, I'm like, wow, they just stained this woman's carpet, and she like is coughing from the antidote, gets up, and then she's like, I can't believe you just stained my carpet. I'm like, oh dang, we're on the same wavelength. I'm like, wait, what's going on? She's like, yeah, I'm awake, like I'm fine. I'm good. I chose this lifestyle. I'm a mercenary, or I'm an assassin, I guess is the correct term. um and they're like, oh well, I guess you do you. So then they kind of get into like girl talk and like talking about Natasha. And then he gets up to go to the bathroom, and she gets snapped. And I think this is the first instance where we see, no, yes. This is the first instance where we see somebody snapped, and then actually, or wait, no, I think it was, WandaVision where we see somebody snapped and then come back. I don't know. I feel like somebody said this was the first instance of that, but maybe it's something else. But anyway, we see Elena get snapped, so she like briefly is dusted, and then we quickly see her get reformed. But then the environment around her is quickly changing. So she walks out like, what the heck? What is going on? Like, what kind of bathroom you got in here? And the house is completely different. She sees a man in the house and a little kid who's adopted. Thankfully, they explained that because I was very confused for a second because the kid did not look like either parent. But Anne, I think it's Anne, who was the Black Widow whose house that she was in, comes out like, oh my God, like, Yelena, where have you been? Like, how are you? What? And so they talk about like what's happened and how some people got snapped and some people are back now. And then Elena's like, well, I have to find Natasha to tell her I'm okay. And then we cut to the title card. So, that conversation did not go well. So then we cut back to Kate coming home all bruised up from the night before fighting Yelena and Echo. and her mom is very concerned, like, oh my god, like, what happened? Is this because of Clint? And she's like, no, it's not because of Clint. Clint actually helped me, saved me. He told me to stay away from him though. And like, mom knows she's sad about it because she's like borderline crying. It's not from like the injuries, it's just her hero. It's like basically telling her to get the frick away from her. So they hug it out, and that was funny. My next note. So Kate and her mom goes up to Kate's room, and like her mom's dressing her wounds, and Kate's pretty much realizing that, you know, she might not be built for this. She might not be built for this life. She's not a superhero. Um, like the things that she does has consequences, which that's one thing I will fault. I will give Kate a fault. It seems like whenever she has like a character arc where she learns something, she quickly reverts back to the way she was before. And maybe she learned the lesson and she's just like, okay, got it. I'll take it moving forward. But it just seems like, oh, like, you know, Clint, he's had this emotional talk with his son. Like, I helped him facilitate that. I feel good. Now let me bug him about some costume or something that doesn't make sense or something that doesn't matter. I'm like, why, Kate? Why? Why are you doing this? And just this talk, you know, at the end of the series, she's back to her like I'm a superhero type BS. So I don't know. I like Kate. I like the character. I just think she confuses me as far as like what she's actually learned throughout this whole series, but maybe we'll see some kind of development in the future. I don't think there'll be a season 2, but in the future with this character. Um Oh, I wrote down, never thought this before, but I think Kazi was crushing on Echo. I think I did think this before because I started watching more like, oh yeah, I did think this before. But yeah, she definitely realized too late. By the time she thought like, oh, maybe we could be together. He was like, thought about too late. Which was unfortunate. Um, but then skipping back to Kate goes back to her apartment to pick up some things and like kind of move back into her mom's place for a little bit. And Yelena just so happens to be hanging out in there making like sitting over a pot of mac and cheese, like ready to talk. And like I was mentioning earlier to Mr. E, I thought the dynamic for Kate and Yelena, like when I first watched this, I'm like, y'all are kind of forcing it a bit, and I still think that a little bit, but I do enjoy the dynamic a little bit more, like the back and forth that they have, and like you can kind of tell that Yelena doesn't want to hurt Kate, and she really sees her as someone that could be a friend or someone that can relate to this uh kind of lifestyle, especially as like one of the few but growing set of women that aren't in the MCU that have to deal with superhero level stuff or very high crime related things. Let's see, what else. Oh yeah, then she kind of ruins the whole vibe between her and Kate by saying like, yeah, I'm just here to kill Clint. So thanks for girls night, bye. And just leaves it at kind of a bit of an awkward note, but I kind of like that. Because you know, how else would you smooth that over? It's just gonna be awkward either way. But cutting back to Clint goes to crash at Grill's house, and that's the end of that scene. I don't know why I wrote that down. And then we cut. So Kate goes back to her mom's house, sees that Jack is getting arrested by the police, and he has absolutely no idea what's going on. But he's like, "Don't worry, I'll be out. I'll be out in a little bit. Like I'll be there. I'll be there. I will be back just in time for the holiday party." Then cutting back to Clint again. Clint goes to the Avengers Memorial to like talk to Natasha, just to try and get himself psyched up to put the Ronin outfit back on again. So then Ronin invites Maya to meet at the place where they had first met, which is that auto shop where he kills her father. And of course, he says, "Come alone," and Maya brings just about everybody that she can find. Like, hey, cousin, uncle, aunt, y'all doing anything? Like, let's meet at this auto repair shop. No particular reason. Doesn't matter though. Ronan takes pretty much everybody out and definitely disrespects Kazi with this like kind of back fist to the face. Um, so then Ronan meets eyes with Echo, and they run each other, and they have like a little battle. That was pretty cool, and it ends up with Ronan actually surprisingly uh beating Maya's butt. I did not think he was gonna be able to do it so easily, and she's kind of lucky that he didn't have the intent to kill. But Ronan takes off the mask, reveals it as Clint, and he tries to talk with her with what little signing and really just her reading his lips. He does the best he can with signing and trying to say like, "Hey, we're more similar than you think. Like we're both weapons. We both like are powerful, and if pointed in the wrong direction, we can make some bad choices and be taken advantage of." And he also tries to tell her that the reason I even killed your father in the first place is because somebody hired me, like an informant basically gave me some information and sent me out to go do it. So that immediately kind of like puts some eyes on Kazi, even though I feel like I would have been pointing more towards Kingpin at this point, which I believe. I don't know. Not revealed yet. Not revealed yet. Yeah. So, after Clint is kind of getting a little bit overwhelmed with some of Maya's dudes who come back with the guns, Kate calls Uber for them, kind of helps Clint with a few cover fire arrows, and then they get in the Uber, go back to her aunt's apartment, I believe, and they start getting a plan together, like what gadgets they need for like this final battle, like settle everything. And then, or no, they go to Grill's apartment, not her aunt's apartment. They go to Grill's apartment. And then the next day, Yelena sends a video to Kate of her mother Eleanor talking to Kingpin. So that was the reveal that Kingpin is back in the MCU. So he's not banished in the realm of Netflix, Marvel shows anymore. He's like back in the MCU, or I guess introduced to the MCU. And I do have to note that Yelena's fit in this episode at the end of the episode was very cute. It was very cool. I'm like, dang, she's working that. She's working that. And then on to the final episode 6. This is Christmas. Oh, okay. Catch my breath for a second here. So I wrote these notes not on my iPad. I wrote these a long time ago, so I think they're kind of short, actually, surprisingly. The notes that I've written like in the past couple days are much shorter than the ones I wrote a long time ago, because I did not think I would be doing something like this. All right. Let's get into it. Episode 6, This is Christmas. So I guess a lot of these are just questions and statements that I had. My first question was, what was Jack going to say to Eleanor? I guess this question refers to when Jack was released from jail. He's at the party with a sword for some reason. They let him carry a sword, even though he was just released from jail. But he was going to ask Eleanor something while they were stuck in the kitchen together, but Eleanor ends up walking away before we get to see what he was going to say. I don't know if it was that important, but I guess curious. Oh, I wrote, I'm very sad that Jack is very dumb. Still sad about it. Cool that the LARPers got to help out. I did think that was cool that they it wasn't just something random in the story. Like, they brought them all the way through, even had them help in the final mission, which they didn't even have to do that, but the fact that they did, it puts like a neat little bow on the story, I feel. Then I wrote the Kate/Relena relationship feels way too forced for me, which it did at the time. In this episode, it feels a little bit more forced than episode 5, I will admit, especially since they're supposedly like trying to be fighting. Like, why it's not pretending, but I don't know, it feels strange. Like, your actions say one thing, but your mouth is saying something else, and that's the confusion I have. Kate slapping Elena was hilarious though. That surprised, I think, just about everybody. It surprised Elena, it surprised me, surprised probably Kate too, that it worked out that way. Um Jack coming to the fight at the end was cool. I was wondering what was gonna happen with him. I guessed past me, I guess. I mean, he had the sword, might as well. And then I did notice, I think when I watched or reviewed this episode originally, uh, a lot of people were saying like, "Oh, it's convenient how everybody had like swords." Everybody did not have swords in fighting Jack. They actually all just had like baseball bats and pipes and stuff, and were fighting him with like some long range weapons, I guess, to try and match him. Um, but I don't know, like I don't think everybody had to do that though. It just seemed a little strange. It still seems a little strange. The tiny car was funny. Ah, yes, when the Fat Man truck, one of the Fat Man trucks, gets shrunk by the Pimtech arrow that shrinks. That was kind of funny, and then it was kind of not disturbing, but made me think when the owl kind of carried it off. Like, are they gonna die? Is that gonna wear off? I don't know. Then we see Kazi catch a freaking arrow. Are you superhuman, dude? Like, how did you do that? I can't believe that you did that. I can't believe that he did that. It's very hard for me. Like, nothing in the show. Like, this is the last episode. So yeah, nothing in this whole series convince me. Oh my gosh, convince me that he was capable of doing that, and then he does it, and it's like, what? Like, I guess for the sake of plot, you can't die just yet, even though he ends up dying at the end anyway. I guess he had to say goodbye to Echo first, but I don't know. That was strange. Kingpin ragdolling was surprising and funny. Okay, I didn't write this before, I don't think. So Kingpin gets hit by a car, which I don't know how Eleanor is sitting in the car when Kingpin's like, hey, 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 and like tries to abduct her. But I don't know how Eleanor got to the front seat, turned the car around, and then had enough speed to send Kingpin flying like that. And the amount of time that it took Kingpin to nose Kate, and then Kate shot like 2 arrows in him. Not that everything needs to be realistic, that we are talking about superhero stuff, but I don't know. It's just sometimes things are done that take me out of it. And that's not good as an audience member. But very, very minor thing at the end of the day. Also, the fact that Kingpin got hit by a car and then pretty much exploded, and then something else happened to him where he was sent flying again. I'm like, how is he? Like, I figured he probably wouldn't die, but how is he still awake after he was like exploded? Not exploded, but an explosion happened near him. He was knocked out for a little bit, like not as long as I feel like he probably could have been. But I don't know. There was some weird superhuman juice that must have been at the party or something that Kazi and Kingpin drank. Oh yeah. And then I wrote Maya didn't look too broken up over Kazi's death, which she didn't. She kind of looked like very like sultry and kind of like almost like a sexy kind of pose. Like, I give you one last good look before I go. Like, I'm like, what is this face? Like, I expected tears. I expected like, no, just like, I don't know. That was strange. That was a strange reaction from Maya. But maybe she got over it. She's like, I realized it's not gonna happen with Kazi, but I'm gonna make him wish it happened before he goes. I have no idea. Oh, another thing. Kate must have also been drinking the superhuman juice, because I asked, like, how is Kate taking all these hits from Kingpin? I think she literally got like punched and kicked and punted about 5 times. How is she alive? Like, just fighting with freaking Echo and Yelena, she was getting, like, messed up. So how did Kingpin not destroy her? Like, unless Kingpin was intentionally holding back, which why would he? I don't know. That was also very strange. I wrote, I'm kind of surprised that Eleanor cares about Kate. Yeah, she did seem like kind of a heartless mother a lot of the series. Or I won't say heartless, but it seemed like she would care more about her like criminal business and like Jack than she cared about Kate. Which is interesting because I actually just watched a deleted scene on Disney Plus where we get to see Kate interact with Eleanor in a different way, and that scene felt much more like motherly and loving than most of the actual series did. So I'm kind of curious why they didn't include that. If they wanted her to seem like she actually cared about Kate. But then I was also surprised that Kate immediately turned her mother in like Christmas Eve. Ah, that like was it the right thing to do legally? Yeah, I suppose. Would I do it? I don't know. Like if I did, I wouldn't have done it that soon. Like at least talk about it. Like I gotta turn you in, mom. Merry Christmas. like I gotta turn you in. But Kate, she had the police ready. Um, the next thing I said, so Maya killed Kingpin? LOL. She shoots him in the face like towards the end of the episode. Of course he's not dead because you didn't really see anything happen to him, and supposedly he'll be temporarily blind, is what I've heard. He'll be temporarily blind next time you see him in the MCU because he's recovering from the injury. But uh, I don't know. A lot of superhuman things happening. um, the end, the fighting felt incomplete, anticlimactic. I feel like maybe the reason I felt like this is because Yelena kind of comes in and like her and Clint fight for a second, and they talk, and then they like fight a little bit more. They talk for a while. And then Kingpin getting hit with the explosion and it being kind of weird. I don't know. It was like I think I had too many questions by the end of some of those fight sequences where it kind of pulled me out. Maybe that's why I thought it. That's why I said incomplete. I wouldn't say incomplete now, but there were definitely some weird things. And then I said, so the dog is randomly lucky now. Yeah, they never really said like how they settled on the name, but I was like, okay, lol. Was it completely satisfied with the watch situation? I did say that. And then also, are we really gonna believe that no one saw the shield on the back? Yeah, there wasn't, at least that I could see, any kind of engraving that said like Laura, Barton, or like Laura, whatever her surname is. But you think someone would have seen that and been like, hey, maybe this is important. Did not officially pass off the title. Ending was kind of whack. I was kind of critical about this. The ending was fine. Now that I've seen it again, I suppose. He didn't really officially pass off the title, but I think like they're trying to make the audience assume what happened next. Which is like the title being passed off and Clint retiring just so he could spend more time with his family. But I think it would have been nice to have like a little bit more closure before just ending it out. But honestly, this was a good episode. It would have been a lot to cover, so it was fine. And then I said no update from Val at the end, which also would have been nice. That would have been a better end credit scene than just watching Rogers the Musical again. Although funny, not really what anybody wanted to see. Like even though I was like I was fine with it, enjoyed it, I would have much rather wanted to see like what Val's reaction would have been to Yelena not killing Clint, and Yelena possibly even saying like, hey, why didn't you tell me that Natasha was friends with Clint Barton? Or I don't know. I think Yelena is kind of being led on a leash right now, or at least a little bit. So I kind of want her to wake up in some sense and say like, hey, maybe I shouldn't be doing everything that I'm doing. But with that, we have reviewed every episode. So which episode I think was the best? Um, I think, I feel like it's between 3 and 4. Let me look at my notes. I think it is between 3 and 4. Let's see, that's 2. Echoes, where you get the introduction. Echo. Let me see. 3 is pretty good. 4, dancing and Tasha reference and breaking into the apartment. Yeah, it's definitely 3. 3 was definitely the best one for me. But not to say there was a sharp drop off after 3 or before 3. I thought all of the episodes are pretty solid. But 3 stands out as like the one that I think I probably enjoyed the most, with just the emotional moments and the action. It was there. It was all there for me. What else? What else? What do I think of the series overall? I think this is the second best Marvel series so far. I would recommend it, especially for people who may not be the biggest fans of Hawkeye or maybe don't know a whole lot about Hawkeye. Do I think they really give more background to Hawkeye? Like, not really. I think you learn like maybe a little bit more about his family and just like how much he cares about them. But as a character, I don't really think we get to know that much more, which is a little bit unfortunate, but I think he's also kind of being phased out. So why bother at this point, you know what I'm saying, when they could spend more time learning about Kate, which we definitely did get to do that. So yeah, I would watch it at least to learn more about Kate, because she's definitely going to be an important member of the Young Avengers team. Um, and also her dynamic with Elena, because they'll probably be working pretty close together. Especially since a lot of fans really enjoy their dynamic. Yeah, I think that's just about everything. So it's about hour 17, which believe it or not, most of the reviews, you probably do believe it, but most of the reviews I record for about 45 minutes to an hour. So being able to talk about this series, probably not touching on like every single little thought, but hitting the big points. 6 episodes in an hour, I think is pretty good. Pretty good. I'll probably continue with this model. So I think we're gonna talk about Moon Knight next week on Wednesday? Question mark? We can set up as Wednesday. And I'll also try and do it a little bit earlier. I will be running on PST time though, so it still might be kind of late either way. But I don't know. Maybe on Saturday then instead, because Saturday I could do it a bit earlier, instead of like almost midnight. We'll pin it for Saturday. But yeah, thanks to everybody who's came through to support the stream, or is also supporting the VOD right now. And just for the support on the channel in general, I'm gonna be trying to come up with some things to do in between these live streams. I do have a couple of ideas. I just gotta find the time to execute. So thanks for the patience on that. But yeah, if you enjoyed this live stream and want some more things like it, then make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to see more live streams and other things that I post on this channel. Oh yeah, also, before I forget, I was doing a charity stream over on my Twitch channel. And I believe I copied the link to the description. Let me double check here. Yes. No. Hold on. Let me copy it now. Now that I remember. But I will put the my campaign link for I just hosted a charity drive for St. Jude's Children's Hospital. Which if you guys haven't been on the channel too long, it's just something I do. I try to do it twice a year. And yeah, just try and support different communities or different organizations that I feel like it will go to a good cause. So if you guys would like to donate, definitely check out the donation link in the description down below. Or if you want to share it with somebody, you can also do that. Just any kind of support would be definitely appreciated. And with that, I wish you all a nice eating or night. Whereas enjoy it. I will see y'all next time.